Hello. Seeing it's back to school week here in the UK, I thought I'd read for you a story of mine called MOG in my collection A Very Bad Year, which has as its central theme the idea of parents sending their children to school in that first day in September. So let's just have a read, see what we think. MOG. The kids weren't playing ball. How hard was it to take a photograph with both of them smiling and their eyes open? Emily was looking to get the obligatory back-to-school shot for Facebook. Riley and Casey were positioned with the front door as the backdrop, her daughter holding her burgundy satchel in front of her, beaming proudly but dancing from foot to foot. Her son shrinking into his brand new high school blazer, wishing for the earth to swallow him up. Riley Davis, look at your mother and pretend you like her. It's so embarrassing, Mum. Don't be ridiculous. Everyone does this and you know it. Plus, your first day of high school. There was no way this wasn't happening. He pulled at the imagined tightness of his shirt collar. You've taken some already. But not with a smile. Casey chirped. I'm smiling. I know, but I need you to stand still, darling. Come on, one more. Bless them, they both stood to attention. Riley, getting taller almost by the day, placed a hand on Casey's shoulder, which instantly settled her and fixed them both in freeze frame. His little sister was permanently grinning, but for a second Riley joined her, possibly sarcastically and pandering to his mother's foolish wishes. But when Emily checked it on her phone, the image looked perfect. Got it. Thank you both. They stood at ease, and Casey skipped down the hallway and back into the living room to carry on watching reruns of the Powerpuff Girls. Riley stayed at the door and shouldered his school rucksack. Are you sure you want to get the bus? Asked Emily. I could drop you off, no problem. It's fine, Mum. I've already arranged to meet Deepesh and Brandon at the stop. And you remembered to pick up your bus pass and your lunch money? He smiled. This was one definitely more genuine than the one in the photo. And Emily wished she could just whip out her phone and catch this one too. She would just have to store it in her memory bank. I'm going to be okay, Mum. It's just school. 5 times bigger and further away, and we're going to be the babies again, but still just school. You'll never stop being my baby. She reached out and smoothed his temple and ear with her thumb. She was delighted when he didn't pull away. I gotta go. See you later, Mum. He pulled at the latch and slipped out through the gap. Emily stopped the door from closing. Instead, she watched him walk down the path and through the gate. He offered her a fleeting wave before he rounded the corner and disappeared. Her heart flipped in her chest, and she drew in a deep breath and turned back to her youngest. Turn that off for me, Casey Bear. Time for you to go and start year 3, big girl. Once Emily had got Casey sorted and strapped into her booster seat, she leaned on the Renault and got her phone back out. She brought up Facebook and posted this morning's picture. She added the caption, had to do it, love these 2 monsters. Phone back in her bag, she took Casey to school. The school playground had been filled with cooing mothers, which was never really Emily's thing, at least not in public. She handed Casey over to one of the non-teaching staff, after a long kiss on the top of her head, and watched her interact with a few of her friends for a minute before slipping off. She had things to be getting on with at home. She got the text as she walked back in through the front door. She dropped her keys on the sideboard and fished out her phone. She went into the living room and flopped in the armchair, then selected messages. It was from Sarah Lowther. She'd worked with Sarah a lifetime ago, before Casey had been born in fact, and as far as Emily could remember, they hadn't got on particularly well. They'd shared an office at the insurance company she was with at the time, and they forever seemed to get in each other's way, not very compatible in how they each wanted to do things. Sarah's number would still be in her contacts as a legacy of that time, but Emily would not have had cause to use it for 7 years. Curious, she opened it up. Emily was right. The one above it was from November 2011. The new one, from 2 minutes ago, read, "Look for MOG on your FB." Emily was bemused. There was no sense in it. The only logical step was to take a look at Facebook. The bell icon in the social media app had red numbers next to it, signifying activity. She selected it to see that already 18 people had liked her photograph. A number of people had also left comments, including her mum and her best friend. Then she saw the puzzling line, "MOG commented on your post." She pressed the message. The photo of her children in their new uniforms came up, thumbs up and love heart symbols positioned underneath. There was also mention of 4 comments having been left, so she scrolled down. "Beautiful, gorgeous, best kids ever." Then the comment from MOG. Rather than a line of text, it was her photo again, embedded as a comment but with an edit. She selected it so that the edit filled the phone screen. There they were, Riley in his green blazer, half a size too big, Casey clutching her satchel like it contained the crown jewels. Part of her cute little face was obscured. On the left side of her forehead was a yellow, frowning emoji. It didn't make any sense. She clicked on MOG. There was nothing much to see on their homepage. Their profile image was the direct opposite of what was used to edit Emily's picture. Here was the yellow smiley face. That bit then dawned on her. MOG. M-O-G. Emoji. But why had it randomly planted an emoji on her daughter's head? Fearing that it might be a virus, Emily decided to block MOG and then close Facebook. She wondered if she should text Sarah and ask if she knew what it all meant, but in the end decided against what would be awkward contact after so long. Instead, she started to gather what she needed for work. She did some part-time hours at the local solicitors, filing and taking calls, and was due in at 11. She was busy making a sandwich when the phone rang. The lady on the other end asked if she was speaking to Mrs. Davis. Emily confirmed that she was, although the Mrs. bit was debatable. She and Chris had been separated for 5 years. "Hello, Mrs. Davis. It's Teresa Abbott, receptionist at Ember Lane Primary. I'm afraid your daughter Casey has had a little accident. Now, it's nothing to worry about. Tell me." Emily's head flooded with heat and her stomach churned. "Oh, she's just had a wee bump. Nothing too serious, but it has come up as a little egg. So we do need to let you know, just in case you wanted to take her to the hospital." "The hospital?" She felt her throat dry up. Precaution. We have to say that with head injuries. Are you able to come in and check her over?" "I can be there in 10 minutes. Do you know which part of her head she's bumped? Which side?" Emily thought she knew the answer to that. The left side of her forehead. "I'm not sure, Mrs. Davis. She's in first aid at the moment. I believe all she's done is stumble and hit a door frame. You really mustn't worry." Emily reiterated the 10-minute time frame and hung up. At the school, Teresa Abbott handed over a red visitor lanyard and buzzed Emily through into the main school corridor. Casey was sitting on a row of blue comfy chairs, looking small and lonely. She waved her mum over. Emily crouched down and held her daughter's face in her hands. Sure enough, the bump was on the left side of her forehead, raised a few millimetres and shaded pink, looking like it was the initial sign of horn growth. "What were you doing, baby? You must have only been in class for 5 minutes." Casey stuck her bottom lip out, the way she did when she was about to try and talk herself out of trouble. "I was only skipping along the hallway when I just started thinking, and then my legs got all in a tangle, and I tripped over and banged my head by the door." Was anyone else around? Just Bella and Jax, Mummy, but nobody pushed me. It was nothing like that. I just fell. We had gone to the next classroom to collect aprons. We're going to be painting after playtime. Emily tilted Casey's face this way and that, then tenderly pushed a finger against the lump. Casey winced, but Emily suspected it was partly a feigned response. She seemed fine. Did school give you anything to put on it? This, she declared, producing a plastic instant ice pack by her side. But it's too cold, Mummy. You keep pressing that on every so often, Casey Bear. It'll make the lump go away. Do I have to go to the hospital? I want to stay here and paint. I think you're going to be just fine. You just need to concentrate on what you're doing a bit more than you currently do. Emily swiftly replayed their conversation, seeing if there was anything she'd missed. Listen, what were you thinking about just before you fell over? I was thinking about Daddy. Chopping wood. Chris was a joiner. Casey had a simplistic notion of what he did, mainly something akin to a woodcutter in a fairy tale. Well, like I said, concentrate, darling. As Emily stood up, Teresa waddled over. So what's the verdict? Am I taking Casey back to class? Yes, please. It looks like nothing to be worried about. She smoothed the back of her daughter's hair. She's been a brave little girl, haven't you, Casey? When I get a moment, I'll find you a sticker. But first, let's show Mummy out. At the door, Emily kissed Casey, handed back the lanyard, then headed out to the car. Before getting in, she checked Facebook again. More likes and loves for her picture, but nothing more from the mysterious MOG. She headed home to restart making her lunch. Emily was just finishing a cup of tea before heading out to work when her phone rang. Not the school this time, thankfully, but her ex, Chris. Their separation hadn't been acrimonious. They both knew they'd jumped into commitment too young, too soon in their relationship, and although there hadn't been a full-on 7-year itch for either of them, it was clear at the time that it had run its course. They were still friends, which was one of the reasons why Emily hadn't ditched his surname. That and because it made things easier for the kids. It wasn't unusual for Chris to be calling, not like a text from Sarah Lowther, and he was probably just ringing to check how the first morning of a new school year had gone. Hi, Chris. Hi, Em. I just thought I'd let you know so you can tell the kids later. I'm currently on my way to A&E. Oh my God, what's happened? Oh, nothing life-threatening, don't worry. But I've currently got my finger shoved in a mug full of ice while Davy drives at like 20 miles an hour. Emily heard his workmate in the background telling him to shut it. Can't believe it. After 15 years of being a chippy, I finally had an accident. I've taken the top of my finger off. Oh shit, Chris. I know. I don't really know what happened. I guess I was bloody daydreaming, thinking about how Riley's starting high school and all that. And next thing I know is that the saw's making a brand new noise and I'm redecorating my bench. That's disgusting. Emily tipped the remains of her tea in the sink. You're all right, though? I'm sure I will be. I just might not be able to make it to yours before dinner tonight to see how their day's been. God knows how long I'll be in the hospital. Can they, I don't know, sew it back on? Emily was feeling a little queasy. I doubt it. The end looks a bit chewed up. Sweet picture of the two of them on Facebook, by the way. She thanked him, wished him well, and told him he'd get the children to call him before they went to bed. All the while, she had a nagging feeling about Facebook, like it was caught on a string. She hadn't checked in since the school car park, which was nearly an hour ago. She had 2 minutes before she needed to leave for work. She opened the app. More love for the picture, but she soon forgot about all that when she read another line on her notifications. MOG commented on your photo. She'd blocked MOG. What was this? She clicked the link. A photo filled the screen, but it wasn't the one from this morning. It was from April, Casey blowing out the candles on her birthday cake. Emily looked for a comment. "You better leave my little baby alone," she thought. The comment, like the last one, was in the form of an edited version of the original image. Emily enlarged it. Casey was unblemished. There were no additions to her beautiful face this time. However, in the background was Chris, bent over slightly to get a closer look at his girl, hands resting on his thighs. There was a small, frowny-faced emoji on the fingertips of his right hand. Emily felt sick. She checked the timing of the comment. 44 minutes ago. She did the maths. She would have been driving back from Casey's school at that time. Had this been posted before Chris's accident? Most probably. She didn't want to ring him back and check. He'd only ask questions and then she'd end up sounding like a lunatic. She dropped the phone onto the breakfast bar, then leaned against the wall, her hands on her face. What did all this mean? What the hell was actually happening? She couldn't go to work, that much she knew. She picked the phone back up and rang Harlow Williamson Harlow, apologised profusely, but she was far too ill to make it in that day. She then tried to piece it all together. A picture of Casey with an emoji added. She then gets hurt. A picture of Chris with the same edit. A similar result. Nastier though, she thought. Chris's injury is worse. She feared the potential escalation. She had blocked MOG on her account, but yet it, still managed to access the second photo. She brought up Facebook again and found MOG. She sent a private message. "Who are you? Why are you doing this to me?" She then sat on a kitchen stool and stared at the screen, willing a response. She jumped when she got one. "These are not the right questions," replied MOG. "What am I supposed to ask?" she thumbed. She waited the same amount of time as before, longer, but nothing happened. No reply. She thought again about all that had happened, the conversations she had had with both Casey and Chris. A nauseating thought occurred to her. Casey had been thinking about her daddy when she tripped. Chris had been wondering about Riley's first day. She sent a message to MOG. "Is my son going to be next?" She waited. No response. She loaded up her photographs and scrolled through them all, looking for shots of Riley. She checked every one. Holidays, Christmas, football team photo, restaurants, long walks, sleepovers. Nothing. They were all emoji free. For now. She looked online for the phone number of the high school and called. "Hello? My son, Riley Davis, has started today in year 7. I'm worried that he's had an accident. Could someone check on him?" The lady on the other end seemed rightly sceptical. "Has someone contacted you to say he's had an accident? We've had nothing reported to the school office." No, they've not. I've just got a horrible feeling about him today." The receptionist's tone changed, became warmer. "You'll not be alone in that today. It's understandable that mums get anxious when their kids come up to the big school. I'm sure he'll be fine." Big school, how patronising. "It's not that." But she couldn't say what it was, because what it was amounted to madness. She toyed with the idea of driving up to the school and collecting him. But what would she say to Riley? And what would his reaction be? He had shuddered at the notion of her driving him to school. He'd be mortified if she turned up and dragged him out of lessons for no good reason. "But I have a good reason, don't I? Could someone at least just check he's okay for me?" "Of course, Mrs. Davis. I'll get someone to pop into his lesson. If there's an issue, we'll let you know promptly." She knew that, for now, that was the best she could hope for. Emily went back to her account. No further updates or messages. She spent the early afternoon refreshing her page, monitoring her photographs and checking for missed calls. She also tried a few more questions for MOG via Messenger. How are you doing this? Do I know you? Is it over? None of them were rewarded with an answer. Then, at 2:30 p.m, it happened again. She was sitting in the living room when a new notification appeared. MOG has commented on your photo. Emily's hand shook as she selected it. It was a picture of Riley, taken in the summer. They'd visited a working farm, and it was an engaging shot of him laughing heartily as he posed with a sheep. The edited version had a large, frowny-faced emoji covering his entire head and chest. Oh my God! Oh no! As her pulse raced, she was torn between ringing the school, hurling typed abuse at MOG, or just jumping into the car and driving as fast as she could go and wrap her arms around her son. She opted for another question to MOG. As she quickly composed it, she was surprised that she hadn't asked it already. What do you want me to do? The reply was almost instantaneous. Pass it on. She nearly dropped the phone. Clasping it, pulling it to her chest, she stood and paced the room. She glanced out of the window, just in case someone was standing in the front garden watching her and laughing at the elaborate joke that they were playing. The garden and the street beyond it was empty. She dropped down onto the sofa, perched on the lip of the seat, and replied, How? MOG responded, Choose. Then, without her interaction, her friends list popped up onto the screen and started to scroll slowly of its own accord. No, she cried aloud. I can't pick someone else to be hurt. Must be something else I can do. She tried to type words to that effect, but the screen was unresponsive beyond the friends list. She couldn't get back to the messenger service and her connection to MOG. The list kept scrolling. Close friends, family, work colleagues, old school mates. There were also acquaintances, people she knew through others from group ventures like weddings, festivals, parties, playdates. People who she might have had only 2 or 3 conversations with. But could she just choose one of them? Subject them to what she was experiencing today? Should she ring the school? She checked her watch. If she wanted to get there before the end of lessons, then she needed to leave in the next 10 minutes. But then Casey also needed picking up. How could she juggle all this? Ring the school and get them to hold Riley until she could get there? That surely was the only option. Unless she picked someone off the list. She could then alert them immediately to what was about to happen. That might help them, as well as give her time to get her children. Emily looked down at the phone, at the names. There was Sarah Lowther, who she hadn't heard from years until today. Sarah Lowther, who had been prone to snide comments and the occasional unjustified air of superiority. Sarah Lowther, who had once accused Emily of setting her up in front of management when some finances didn't quite add up. Sarah Lowther, who was only in Emily's phone and Facebook because she just never got round to deleting her. And yet, Sarah Lowther was the first one to mention MOG to her. Emily held her breath and selected Sarah's name from the list. Nothing happened, except that Messenger came to the fore and MOG responded. Invalid choice. What? What do you mean? You said choose, so I chose. She typed something similar. MOG's Facebook profile page came up, and for the first time, their photos showed themselves to be available. Emily selected them, and a large array of images suddenly became accessible, hundreds. She could see at a glance that the vast majority of them had emojis on them. The most recent 3 she recognised immediately. Her back-to-school photo, Casey at her birthday party, Riley at the working farm. The picture before her own stolen images was emoji free. It was Sarah, smiling, cheeks plump and ruddy, caught in a natural pose under a clear sky. The one before that also had Sarah in it. She was holding hands with her partner, sitting on a park bench. He had the unhappy emoji on his knee. She passed it to me to save herself, once hubby's knee was done in. The picture before that was one of a child, possibly Sarah's, an emoji on her chin. She had been thinking through the same situation as Emily. That's why I can't pick her. This thing can't go backwards. Her instinct was to call Sarah and tell her what a bitch she was, but that wasn't going to help. Instead, Emily had to decide, and quickly, what she's going to do about the yellow precursor to injury that was completely obscuring her beautiful son's face. Also, was Sarah really a bitch? Wasn't Emily going to have to do the same? Hadn't she already pressed Sarah's name with the intention of passing on this curse? I have to choose. She scrolled until she found what she was looking for, what she had decided she would settle for. Louise Etheridge, used to be Lou Macken at school. Emily barely recognised her, and had only accepted her friend request after she'd asked her best friend Pip who the hell Louise Etheridge was. Emily didn't dislike her, she just didn't have any real memory of her, and that was the best she could do at this moment. She pressed her name. Louise's profile came up briefly, but then the entire app closed down. She tried to reactivate the pages, but nothing was responsive. Emily didn't think she could sit around the house wondering whether what she'd done was enough. Now she had to act. She called the primary school and got Teresa Abbott again. Could she arrange for someone to keep hold of Casey until Emily was able to pick her up? It seemed it would cost her £10 for a one-off slot in after-school club, but Teresa was sure it would be okay. Emily agreed to the arrangement. She would now drive to the high school and rescue her son. She shoved her phone in the back pocket of her jeans, scooped up her keys and ran outside. It should have taken just over 15 minutes, but Emily managed it in 12, running a few risky lights and pushing the boundaries of what was excessive regarding speed. She still didn't make it before the bell. The high school faced out onto the main road on her left, and the pavement was awash with green-clad teens in all guises, swarming in clumps, shouting and laughing, marching off head down, nervously glancing for familiar faces, leaning and loitering, eyes glued to phone screens, waving goodbye to friends, climbing into parked cars. As she watched through the windscreen, there was no sign of Riley. In the melee, how on earth would she spot him anyway? Was it like this every day? Traffic was slow because of the constant use of the road crossing. She was finally the first car at the light and saw up close a gaggle of short-skirted girls saunter across, deep in their elaborate five-way conversation. Could they walk any slower? She knew from one of Riley's induction days that the official school buses picked up and dropped off around the corner down the side of the school. Would he be there? Had the bus already gone? When the lights changed, she floored the Renault, indicated for the left corner, and took it smartly. There were a couple of kids in the road, a little dark-haired Asian boy and Riley, frozen to the spot, one hand grasping his phone, the other palm up at the oncoming car. Eyes wide and mouth open. Correction, was he in the process of mouthing, "Mum"? Emily didn't know how she had time for the thoughts, but somehow they were there. "I chose someone, this shouldn't happen." And, "I'm going to kill my precious boy." Riley looked huge in her windscreen, his panicked face a searing, all-encompassing image. She wrenched the steering wheel to the right with everything she had. She had no perception of the oncoming car, no idea of model, size, colour. She just heard metal scream and felt the impossible immediate impact as the two fronts collided. The sudden stop made her jolt against her seatbelt, almost cutting into her breast. Her head flung forward and her somehow jellied neck was caught in the forceful and smothering care of a deployed airbag. Emily felt everything come to rest. That was her cue to start the fight against the airbag, the seatbelt and the door handle. When she finally got it all working, she tipped out onto the road to the sound of a collective gasp from bystanders. She felt hands trying to help her, perceived bodies in her way, but she pushed them all aside. She had the image in her mind, like when one stares at a light and it's still there when the eyes are closed, of her son's mangled corpse wedged between the two vehicles. "Riley!" she screamed. "Mum, I'm here! And then her beautiful boy filled all the space from her chin to her feet, wrapping himself around her. She didn't mind the physical pain his pressure caused. In fact, it was more than welcome. She smelled his hair and started to sob. Together, they stumbled onto the pavement, swaying slightly. Emily then glanced over the top of Riley's head at the wreck, her vision like a rainy window. It was hard to tell where one car ended and the other began, melded together in an ugly concertina, surrounded by confetti-like glass. Other adults were trying to deal with the other driver, arguing amongst themselves about what should be done. Emily saw through a gap that there was no airbag in the other vehicle. The driver, a man around her age, had his face, painted red, wedged into the steering wheel. His eyes were closed and he wasn't moving. Emily's insides began to shred. Her phone was somehow still in her back pocket and it started to buzz. She eased Riley off her. He was silently crying and shaking at the shoulders. She made a soothing noise in the tone given out solely for mothers to use, and ensured she kept one arm permanently attached to him. She fished out the phone and stared at the screen, wobbling in her hand. Facebook was already uploaded. Louise Etheridge's profile page was up. Without Emily's touch, it moved to a picture and the message below it. "MOG has commented on your photo." Louise and, apparently, Mark Etheridge on a beach, arms around each other. The photo in the comment section had been edited with an emoji across Mark's face. Emily stumbled back to the school railings, taking Riley with her. They both slid down to the floor. She added her own comment on the picture, just below MOG's. "Pass it on, Lou." Then Emily smashed her phone repeatedly against the pavement. There we have it. That's MOG, a short story for September from my book, A Very Bad Year, which has a story for every month of the year. So check it out if you want to read what happens in other parts of the year. Thank you.